Right, so we're back and it's another dandelion one. This one I think probably is a little bit too much for younger children, but older kids who have watercolours may be able to manage. You will need for this your coloured pencils. Again, I'm still using the black, the light green and the dark green from the set from B&M. £2.50 bargain. And for this one you're also going to want some table salt, that's the finer one, and some masking fluid. I'm just using the SAA masking fluid. It's blue in colour, which is my preference. I'm not keen on the whites. If you do have a white masking fluid and you can't see it on the paper, then just add a little bit of watercolour to it, just a tiny little bit, just to tone it, and then you'll be able to see where you've put it. So again, I'm going to just very loosely draw a few circles. We'll keep it to a minimum because of the time factor. So I've got that one. I'm going to go with one that's got a rear facing, so you're looking at the back of it through the stalk. And this time I'll go for one that's more elliptical in shape, so that what you're seeing is really the side view. Again, sort of plot out where your center would be so that you can work out where your stalks are coming and going from. So I'm just going to do this, and that one will just come sort of round like that. So I've put them in black, the stalks and things like on the last video. I'm putting back in with black, light green and dark green, and I'm doing the same with the leaves. You don't need to, you can go back and find these with paint after the event if you want to. It is entirely up to you. I will put a few leaves in. Again, they're just wiggly shapes. They're not nothing like a botanical drawing. If you want to make them more accurate, then feel free to do so, but I don't have any intentions of doing that. They've just got wiggly edges and they're just points of interest more than anything. So for this one, we're using masking fluid, which I want to get onto and have a little chat about now. One of the things I really don't recommend is using your masking fluid from the jar, because every time you go into that with a brush or anything else, you are, one, running the risk of polluting it, and two, you're leaving it open. As this is a sort of rubberish solution, when it's exposed or open to the air, it starts to degrade. So you'll very quickly find that over a number of uses that your jar of masking has become yucky. If you're using brushes, one thing that you have to be absolutely careful with is to make sure that you never put your brush in the masking fluid without soaping the brush up first, because if you do, that brush is going to go in the recycling bin without a doubt. Normally what I do is, I know I'm a cheapskate, but no one cares. I pour my masking fluid into, I keep lots of the tops off the milk bottle jars and bottles, so that's off mine. And then I also have some washing up liquid or some hand wash in another one. Now, the nice thing about doing it this way is once that's dry, I can just, it just goes back to being rubbery, and I can just peel it out and keep the lid in my art box for future uses. And with the soap one, if you leave it, it will dry out in the lid, and then again you can just leave it in your art box and you've got it there for whenever you need it. So you don't need to get fresh out every time you do something if you do it that way. So that will do for these. So I'm going to go now and I'm going to mask these out, which is why I don't really think it's suitable for younger children. Older children, if they've used masking fluid before, fine. If not, just keep an eye on it. If you get it on your clothes, it's pretty much certain that they're ruined. Not to put too fine a point on it. I'm just going to put the back on here. A lot of this will just melt and disappear into the background when I put the background on. And this is the one where we want salt for the background. So I've got that. Here's my brush. So I'm soaping up my brush. The brush is damp. Soaping up my brush in. And literally I go in and I make sure that I get the soap right up to the very hub, the heel of the brush here. If you don't, then as you're working, you get a build up and it pushes up towards there. And again, you'll end up with a brush that looks a bit like a hedgehog rather than a brush. I'm using a fine brush for this. You can use a cocktail stick, opened up paper clip. You can use a masking pen, entirely up to you. And you can see when I said I don't recommend using it in the bottle, because obviously I've got soap on here. So if I were putting this into the bottle of masking fluid, sooner or later it's going to be degraded with the soap. So what I'm doing on these is, like, if I do it on a bit of scrap paper for you to see, I'll make it bigger so you can see what I'm doing. But basically it's an X and then I'm just going through it. So it's these little star shapes are what I'm actually doing all around the circle. Try not to be too organized about it. What you don't want is to go a row and a row and a row. It just doesn't look right. And then the other one that I'm going to do are these little flyaway ones, which I'm creating almost a horseshoe shape. Obviously this is exaggerated, so they're not going to be this big. And then I'm just pulling up some wispy bits from the outside. So it's this sort of horseshoe shape, pulling up some wispy bits from the outside. And these will be the ones that are blowing away. So to get back to this, literally we're just going to go all the way across. Lots of these little ones. Again, make sure you go outside the marks that you've put in. Some of them will stay, some of them will be visible. Don't get too picky with it, just get some in, but you don't want to cover the entire thing. You need to leave some spaces and some open areas so that when you put your background on, you can actually see some of the colours showing through. Lots of these will just overlap. I'm doing this very quickly. Probably I would take a little bit more care than this, but this is just a demonstration. You've got no time restrictions. I know that normally I have little issues with my recorded time in terms of it staying where it's meant to be and uploading. So I'm just very quickly rushing through this. But again, you know, you don't want to be too picky. Sometimes when you do these things slowly, that's exactly what happens. You just get really nitpicky with it. And it doesn't always look better for it. So I just want to get lots of these little shapes on. I'm not covering the entire thing. I am keep moving quite quickly. Some of them will end up just being X's. Some of them will be the full star shape. Honestly, when it's done, it won't matter. Again, it's not a botanical painting. It's just a really loose, free, I think very effective look to it. But you can make your own decisions on that afterwards. But it is nice to do. It's nice and relaxing. Well, it is if you're not recording it. And then I'm going to have a couple of these little shaped ones up here. Again, it's just the impression that they've blown off in the wind. We seem to have loads of them about at the moment. And I do like dandelions. They're very, I think they're a lovely colour and what have you. And at the beginning of the year when they first come out, I let them have full reign in the garden. Looks a bit like a jungle at the minute. But mainly because obviously, you know, they're one of the very early ones, flowers that come out, so they're good for the bees and other insects that rely on it. So but at this point in time, I'm starting to yank some of them out because they're being a little bit over friendly with their seed pods for the next round. So next year it'll probably be a nightmare, but the colour is the colour of them is beautiful. So literally just going all the way around. I'm not putting any in that centre bit because that centre bit is going to be the back facing stem. I might go back and put some more pencil mark through that just to make that clear. And the other thing is, they don't have to be a perfect circle. Don't go drawing around something. It's better to do it freehand and have it maybe a little bit wiggly on the edges. If you draw around something and you get an absolutely perfect circle, it never really seems to look right. But again, like on the other video, take some of these outside so that you've got bits breaking away. Mother Nature doesn't actually worry about all these minor details. She just gets on with it. So that one will do for that, I think, hopefully. And then this one. Now, one of the important things with masking fluid is that when you've used it, it has to be 100% dry before you start putting background washes on or doing anything over the top of it. If not, you're liable to end up with a mess. There are situations where you may use masking with water or alongside water, but in general, it needs to be 100% dry before you try adding your washes or anything to it. Otherwise, yeah, and most of the time you just get a bit of a mess, and it's not very nice. So here we go, nearly done. I'll call this one finished in a minute. As I say, it's a little bit, maybe a little bit rougher than I would have hoped, but you'll get the gist of it. And over here, I'm just going to take this out a little bit. It's a bit too perfect for my liking. And then we'll have a few little breakaway ones. You noticed I've not gone near the water. I know I'm always batting on about the water, but in the event that you get too much of a build-up on your brush and you do have to go to the water, whatever you do, make sure that you re-soap your brush before you come anywhere near the masking. Seriously, I wouldn't like to say how many brushes get ruined with masking fluid, so just be a little bit cautious with it. Usually, unless I'm working with very fine detailed things, then usually I can manage to get the bulk of the masking done without actually going back and re-washing my brush. And when you do wash it, give it a good wash and then put a little bit more soap in it and then re-wash it, just to be on the safe side. So that one, I think we're going to call that done. I'm not masking anywhere else. you could mask out some other areas if you wanted to, but I'm not going to. So just giving my brush a bit of a clean, back in the soap, give it a rub, make sure that there's no trace of masking left in it. And then, as always when I've used masking, I do tend to dry the brush afterwards, just so that I can double check that it's okay, especially if it's a brush that you really like working with. So that's fairly good. So I'm actually just going to throw a quick blast over this with the hairdryer, and then we're going to put our background on. I think that's pretty well dry, so we're just going to go straight. So I'm using I guess the same colors as I did for the previous one. So I've got lemon yellow, some sap green, a little bit of hooker's green, and then the hooker's green mixed with ultramarine blue, and then I'm using purple. I like purple in this because it's got more yellow in it, and purple's the complementary colour to yellow, so it always seems to work well. So paper wants to be wet. Just to add a little bit of colour onto that so you can see where I'm going. So the paper wants to be wet. Can you see how the pencil is bleeding into it? That's what we want. It's doing work for you. It's making your life easier. If you don't want to do the pencil beforehand and you want to paint everything afterwards with just very clean colours, that's really up to you. You can do that. I think that's probably wet enough. So light to dark, because we're in watercolour, so I'm using the lemon yellow. Because there is some of this pickup on the paper off the watercolour pencils, it's going to have more of a green tinge than just pure yellow, but that's absolutely fine by me. So, and then going straight in and picking up my greens. I'm not separating or trying to separate these colours. I just want them to blend together. So sap green, and then a little bit of the hooker's green that I mentioned. Again, as I get lower, I'm adding more darks. The very dark green, which I am going to add mainly on the left side. Now, as this dries, as you know, the colours change. So you may need to go back and add in a little bit more before it's dry. I just want to get some shadowing in there. And now I haven't cleaned my brush. I know I'm always on about your brushes. Don't clean your brush too often. Because each one of these colours is darker than the one I was using before. And they get along quite well in terms of colour scheme. I don't need to clean the brush. I don't want to separate all these colours. So, like last time, I'm going to dry my brush off a little bit. I haven't washed it, not changing colours. I'm just going to use the side of the brush and just pull a few lines up. A lot of these are going to disappear or change shape as we go. And then with the purple, I'm just going to drop some purple in just along the edges of this. This one's got the green in the middle, so I'm not too bothered about it. I'll drop a little bit of purple in here. I might even put a little bit in here, up around the top. There we go. And my dark green, I'm gonna, just with the corner of the brush, just drop a little bit more of this very dark green colour into the edge of these leaves. I'm not painting them, I'm just literally touching it in, letting it do what it wants to do. You could even just use some purple if you wanted to. So that's good enough for me. Right, whilst it's still wet, and it needs to be wet, if it's drying it's too late. So whilst it's still wet, I am sprinkling salt. Now you could miss the flowers out, but I don't want to, so I'm just sprinkling it everywhere. In the areas where it's already starting to dry a lot, then the salt at this moment won't have much effect. However, in a minute it will, because we haven't finished. So I think probably I've got enough on here. So I'm going to get another effect out of this, and I'm going to get that by clean water, clean for me anyway. And then I'm just splashing this clean water off the handle of another brush. Now, if you keep turning the brush, you're less likely, have your tissue to hand, but if you keep turning the brush, you're less likely to get big splatters dropping off. If you keep the brush in one position, you will. But keep some tissue handy so that you can just blot the brush handle off. So I'm going all the way over this, just splattering with the water. Even if your paper has started, even if your paper has started to dry, where the water and the salt interact, you will get some changes taking place. Got a large dot there. I'm just going to suck it out. Semi-dry brush will suck it out. Just keep going. Add a bit more. And then from here, I want to pick up some of my lemon yellow. Now, this is quite a thick mix. Same thing, I'm just going to splatter. And again, I'm keeping the little brush that I'm using to drag my other brush against. I'm keeping it turning, but if you start to see a lot of build up on it, just wipe it off on your tissue. Otherwise, I will guarantee you'll get a crater falling off it onto your work. Not necessarily what you want. Now, where the lemon yellow hits the salt and the paper, it interacts and it has this really, really nice chemical effect. The lemon yellow almost chases the other colours out of the way, especially when it's interacting with the salt. So it's just an effect I like. If you don't like it, don't do it. You don't have to. It's your picture. But it's an effect that I actually really like. I like how some paints will sort of do one thing and another one won't. I just find it interesting. And I like the end result. So that's all we're going to do for this stage. And I'll be back in a minute.